have haunted humanity for centuries. Have we truly been alone on this planet? Or has Earth been visited by forces far beyond our understanding? Could the icy expanse of Antarctica conceal secrets so profound they defy explanation? And here's a question even more chilling. What if H.P. Lovecraft's story At the Mountains of Madness wasn't fiction at all? What if his terrifying account of alien civilizations and unimaginable horrors buried beneath the Antarctic ice was based on reality? These are not mere conjectures. One man, a survivor of the very expedition that Lovecraft's story echoes, has come forward to set the record straight. Dr. William Dyer, geologist, explorer, and witness to events that could shatter our understanding of life and the universe, joins us tonight. He was not only a member of that doomed journey, but also a confidant of Lovecraft himself. Dr. Dyer, it is an honor to have you here. For decades, skeptics have dismissed your warnings about the Antarctic, labeling them as fantasies or fear-mongering. But tonight, as the world listens, we ask the ultimate question: was Lovecraft's story a thin veil for unspeakable truths? What did you and your team uncover beneath the ice? And, perhaps most unsettling of all, have we been ignoring the evidence of alien contact on our planet?
Thank you. It is not an easy story to tell, but one I feel bound by duty to share. For years, I have tried to dissuade further expeditions to Antarctica, most recently, the Starkweather Moor expedition. My opposition has often been dismissed, for I've withheld the full reasons behind my warnings. Those reasons, I fear, will sound implausible, even absurd. Yet I must speak, for silence invites ignorance, and ignorance invites catastrophe. What I share tonight, photographs, aerial images, ink drawings, and even rare footage captured during the expedition, may seem damning to some, but I know they will be met with doubt. Skepticism is inevitable when faced with the incredible. The photographs, clear and shocking, will likely be dismissed as clever fabrications. The drawings, with their strange and almost unearthly techniques, may provoke laughter rather than scrutiny. Even the moving images, vivid and unsettling as they are, will be scrutinized and called into question. And yet, I believe that those who study this evidence, carefully true experts in art, science, and history, will see something that defies any conventional explanation. I must also share a regret that weighs heavily on my soul. Years ago, I confided this story to a man whose brilliant mind and talent for conveying the unspeakable seemed the only way to draw attention to what we had uncovered. That man was H.P. Lovecraft. His retelling of my account, woven into the story At the Mountains of Madness, was his way of warning the world in a form that might be heeded. But I fear I placed too great a burden upon him. The darkness of that tale seemed to linger in his spirit, and his untimely passing has haunted me ever since. I cannot shake the thought that my story, my truth, may have played a role in his demise. It pains me deeply to know that I failed him as much as I failed to prevent the dangers now looming on the icy horizon. Tonight, I speak not only to honor his memory, but to ensure his warnings and many are finally heard. For if we do not heed them, we may awaken forces that mankind is not prepared to face. My only hope lies in those few scientists with both the independence to examine my findings with an open mind, and the influence to halt further reckless exploration of the so-called Mountains of Madness. It is a sad truth that my colleagues and I, being from a relatively obscure university, lacked the prestige needed to sway public opinion, especially on matters so bizarre. As a geologist, I led the Miskatonic University expedition with a straightforward goal: to collect deep-level specimens of rock and soil across Antarctica. Professor Pabodi, our engineer, had developed an extraordinary portable drill that allowed us to reach previously inaccessible depths. Light, portable, and efficient, it could drill through strata of varying hardness with remarkable ease. The drill's components, made of advanced aluminum alloys, were light enough to be carried by dog sledges, while our modified Dornier aircraft transported us across the vast frozen wastes. We were exceptionally well prepared, our equipment rivaling that of any previous Antarctic expedition. Our plans were ambitious: to cover vast areas of the Ross Sea region, exploring mountain ranges and plateaus previously visited by legends like Shackleton, Amundsen, and Scott. The goal was to expand our understanding of Earth's ancient history, particularly the Precambrian strata. We knew Antarctica had once been a temperate and fertile land, teeming with life. The fossil records suggested this, but we sought to uncover more proof that would deepen our understanding of the planet's primordial past. Our journey south began in September 1930. We sailed from Boston, passing through the Panama Canal and stopping in Tasmania for final supplies. As we ventured into the Antarctic Circle, the world around us transformed. Icebergs rose like colossal monoliths, and the cold became unrelenting. The desolation was awe-inspiring. By late October, we reached McMurdo Sound, where we set up our first camp beneath the shadow of Mount Erebus. Its smoking peak seemed almost like a warning, though we dismissed it at the time. Our work progressed smoothly. The drills performed beyond expectation, extracting pristine samples of rock and fossils. Spirits were high as we uncovered evidence of Antarctica's ancient ecosystems, plants, marine life, and more. Then, Lake made his discovery. It was a triangular marking in a fragment of slate, unlike anything we had seen before. He believed it to be a fossilized imprint of a life form, one that defied all known evolutionary theories. The rock's immense agitating to the Precambrian errantly deepened the mystery. Lake was adamant that further investigation was needed, and I reluctantly approved his westward expedition to the Queen Alexandra Range. At the time, I thought it was a scientific opportunity, nothing more. But Lake's discovery marked the beginning of our descent into madness. What he found and what we encountered after was something no human mind was prepared to comprehend.
Dr. Dyer, we have access to the original radio transmissions from your expedition, which captivated the world at the time. Alongside these, we know that photographs and film from the mission were delivered back to your base and later recovered. Can you take us through this pivotal stage of your expedition?
Certainly. The turning point began when Lake proposed a sub-expedition northwestward, driven by his growing obsession with the fossil markings found in Archean slate during a preliminary survey. These fossils, though primitive, were extraordinary given the unimaginable age of the rock. While I remained skeptical of his insistence on diverting all 4 planes and most of our equipment, I reluctantly approved his plan. Lake's team departed on January 22nd at 4 a.m., leaving us at the southern base to prepare for the next phase of the mission. The first radio message came just 2 hours later.
6 a.m. starting ice melting, and board a point 300 miles northwest. We'll report findings.
The details he transmitted later that day were more animated. At noon, he sent another message.
Frantic work on shallow shaft blasting slate fragments. New specimens confirm markings like original. Excitement rising.
These early reports, accompanied by some of the first photographs flown back to us, showed fossil markings unlike anything I had ever seen. Still, I questioned the wisdom of his decision to press further into unknown terrain, especially as the weather worsened. When I voiced my concerns, Lake replied sharply.
Hazards worth taking for these specimens. No risk too great.
Then, at 10:03:05 p.m., came the first mention of the mountains that would come to dominate our finding sand, our fears.
On the wing. After snowstorm, have spied mountain range ahead higher than any hitherto seen. May equal Himalayas, allowing for height of plateau. Probable latitude 76 to 415, longitude 1/3 to 410, E. Reach as far as can see to right and left. Suspicion of 2 smoking cones. All peaks black and bare of snow. Hail blowing off them impedes navigation.
This message was accompanied by footage and still images that were flown back to us later. The video showed towering peaks rising impossibly high above the plateau, their dark, snowless surfaces stark against the surrounding white expanse. Even from these early images, the geometry of the formations was striking cubic, and angular shapes clung to the mountains like remnants of some impossible structure. At 10:30 p.m., Lake sent another update.
Molten's plane forced down on plateau in foothills, but nobody hurt, and perhaps can repair. Shall transfer essentials to other 3 for return or further moves if necessary, but no more heavy plane travel needed just now. Mountains surpass anything in imagination. Am going up scouting in Carroll's plane, with all weight out. You can't imagine anything like this. Highest peaks must go over 35,000 feet, Everest out of the running. Atwood to work out high with theodolite while Carroll and I go up. Probably wrong about cones, for formations look stratified. Possibly pre-Cambrian slate with other strata mixed in. Queer skyline effects, regular sections of cubes clinging to highest peaks. Whole thing marvelous in red gold light of low sun. Like land of mystery in a dream or gateway to forbidden world of untrodden wonder. Wish you were here to study.
The still photographs that followed revealed even more unsettling details. The formations Lake described were unnervingly precise massive blocks and ramparts with sharp geometric lines that defied natural explanation. Some of the footage captured massive cave openings, their shapes eerily regular square, semicircular, and impossibly symmetrical. These images and films, brought back by one of the planes sent for supplies, added a visual weight to Lake's increasingly astonishing claims. At 11 p.m., another transmission arrived, this time with chilling new observations.
Up with Carroll over highest foothills. Don't dare try really tall peaks in present weather, but shall later. Frightful work climbing, and hard going at this altitude, but worth it. Great range fairly solid, hence can't get any glimpses beyond. Main summits exceed Himalayas, and very queer. Range looks like pre-Cambrian slate, with plain signs of many other upheaved strata. Was wrong about volcanism. Goes farther in either direction than we can see. Swept clear of snow above about 21,000 feet. Odd formations on slopes of highest mountains. Great low square blocks with exactly vertical sides, and rectangular lines of low vertical ramparts, like the old Asian castles clinging to steep mountains in Rorich's paintings. Impressive from distance. Flew close to some, and Carroll thought they were formed of smaller separate pieces, but that is probably weathering. Most edges crumbled and rounded off as if exposed to storms and climate changes for millions of years. Parts, especially especially upper parts, seem to be of lighter colored rock than any visible strata on slopes proper, hence an evidently crystalline origin. Close flying shoes many cave mouths, some unusually regular in outline, square or semicircular. You must come and investigate. Think I saw ramparts squarely on top of one peak. Height seems about 30,000 to 35,000 feet. I'm up 21,500 myself in devilish gnawing cold. Wind whistles and pipes through passes and in and out of caves, but no flying danger so far.
These reports, combined with the physical evidence returned to us, painted a picture of something ancient and unfathomable. Lake's descriptions, while dramatic, were underscored by what we could now see with our own eyes in the photographs and film reels. The geometry of the formations, the impossible scale of the mountains, and the haunting regularity of the caves suggested that we were standing on the edge of a discovery that defied all natural explanation. Even then, I couldn't shake the sense that these mountains were not merely untouched, they were forbidden.
Dr. Dyer, we've reached the point in your story where Lake's team uncovers something extraordinary, a cavern filled with fossils that challenge our understanding of history. Could you describe how this discovery unfolded?
Of course. Lake had set up his camp near the foothills of the Great Mountains, where the ice sheet was thin and patches of exposed ground were visible. The location was promising, but initial surveys of the rock disappointed him. Most of what he found were Jurassic and Permian strata, far younger than the Archean slate he was hoping to study. This forced him to rethink his approach. While preparing for a more ambitious sledge trip toward the mountain slopes, Lake decided to conduct some local drilling. The first significant breakthrough came mid-afternoon. The drilling team struck a layer of Comanchean limestone, rich with fossilized marine life cephalopods, corals, and vertebrate fragments. It was a significant find in itself, but then the drill head suddenly dropped into an empty space. A controlled blast widened the opening, revealing a limestone cavern about 7 or 8 feet high. Lake's description of the moment still resonates with me. The cavern was vast, with walls and floors adorned with stalactites and stalagmites. But what truly captured his attention was the floor choked with an astonishing array of bones and shells. The fossils defied all expectations. There were remnants of labyrinthodonts, mosasaurs, pterodactyls, and even primitive mammals, alongside ancient marine species. What was most extraordinary, however, was the mix of periods represented. Some fossils belonged to creatures from the Comanchean period, but others dated back hundreds of millions of years to the Silurian and Ordovician periods. Lake speculated that the cavern had been sealed off during the Oligocene epoch, some 30 million years ago, preserving this incredible collection of life forms washed in from ancient ecosystems. His first radio message about the find was sent almost immediately.
Subterranean limestone cavern found. Fossil deposit extraordinary. Shells, bones of ganoids, labyrinthodonts, mosasaurs, pterodactyls, and primitive mammals. Remarkable mix of species, many predating Comanchean limestone layer by hundreds of millions of years. Hollow, likely sealed for 30 million years.
The sheer scale of the discovery overwhelmed the team. Young Gedney, the acting foreman, described it as a gateway to Earth's lost ages. Lake's excitement was palpable, yet there was an underlying tension in his voice as he described the cavern's faint air currents, hinting at a larger subterranean system. Photographs and samples were quickly prepared for transport, and while we wouldn't see the full scope of their findings until the materials reached us by plane, the descriptions alone were staggering.
And during this time, Lake's excitement didn't waver?
not exactly. While his messages brimmed with scientific fervor, I sensed something else creeping in an urgency, perhaps even unease. The scale of the discovery, combined with the mysterious geometry of the mountains towering above, seemed to weigh heavily on him. He urged us to hasten our support, as though the expedition's success depended on moving quickly. In his later transmissions, he described the mountains as silent sentinels, their pinnacles reaching into the sky like a wall at the world's edge. It was as if the site itself carried an air of watchful menace. Even as we marveled at the implications of his findings, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were approaching something far beyond our understanding.
Dr. Dyer, the reports from Lake's camp seem to mark a critical moment in your expedition. Can you tell us what unfolded during that time?
Lake was not content to let his first message stand. Before Moulton could even return to the camp, he had another bulletin written and sent across the snow. After that, Moulton stayed at the wireless station in one of the planes, transmitting Lake's frequent updates to both me and the Arkham for relay to the outside world. Those who followed the newspapers at the time will remember the excitement that these reports generated among scientists, and excitement that, ultimately, led to the organization of the Starkweather Moor expedition I am so determined to discourage. To give you the full picture, I should share Lake's transmissions exactly as they were sent, translated by our base operator McTeague from his pencil shorthand.
Fowler makes discovery of highest importance in sandstone and limestone fragments from blasts. Several distinct triangular striated prints like those in Archean slate, proving that source survived from over 600 million years ago to Comanchean times without more than moderate morphological changes and decrease in average size. Comanchean prints apparently more primitive or decadent, if anything, than older ones. Emphasize importance of discovery in press. Will mean to biology what Einstein has meant to mathematics and physics. Joins up with my previous work and amplifies conclusions. Appears to indicate, as I suspected, that Earth has seen whole cycle or cycles of organic life before known one that begins with Archaeozoic cells. Was evolved and specialized not later than 1,000 million years ago, when planet was young and recently uninhabitable for any life forms or normal protoplasmic structure. Question arises when, where, and how development took place. Examining certain skeletal fragments of large land and marine saurians and primitive mammals, find singular local wounds or injuries to bony structure not attributable to any known predatory or carnivorous animal of any period. Of 2 salt-straight penetrant bores and apparently hacking incisions. 1 or 2 cases of cleanly severed bone. Not many specimens affected. Am sending to camp for electric torches. Will extend search area underground by hacking away stalactites. Have found peculiar soapstone fragment about 6 inches across and 1.5 inches thick, wholly unlike any visible local formation. Greenish, but no evidences to place its period. Has curious smoothness and regularity. Shaped like 5-pointed star with tips broken off, and signs of other cleavage at inward angles and in center of surface. Small, smooth depression in center of unbroken surface. Arouses much curiosity as to source and weathering. Probably some freak of water action. Carroll, with magnifier, thinks he can make out additional markings of geologic significance. Groups of tiny dots in regular patterns. Dogs growing uneasy as we work, and seem to hate this soapstone. Must see if it has any peculiar odor. We'll report again when Mills gets back with light and we start on underground area. 10:15 p.m. Important discovery. Orendorff and Watkins, working underground at 9:45 with light, found monstrous barrel-shaped fossil of wholly unknown nature. Probably vegetable unless overgrown specimen of unknown marine radiata. Tissue evidently preserved by mineral salts. Tough as leather, but astonishing flexibility retained in places. marks of broken off parts at ends and around sides. 6 feet end to end, 3.5 feet central diameter, tapering to 1 foot at each end, like a barrel with 5 bulging ridges in place of staves. Lateral breakages, as of finished stalks, are at equator in middle of these ridges. In furrows between ridges are curious growths, combs or wings that fold up and spread out like fans. All greatly damaged but one, which gives almost 7-foot wing spread. Arrangement reminds one of certain monsters of primal myth, especially fabled elder things in Necronomicon. These wings seem to be membranous, stretched on framework of glandular tubing. Apparent minute orifices in frame tubing at wingtips. Ends of body shriveled, giving no clue to interior or to what has been broken off there. Must dissect when we get back to camp. Can't decide whether vegetable or animal. Many features obviously of almost incredible primitiveness. Have set all hands cutting stalactites and looking for further specimens. Additional scarred bones found, but these must wait. Having trouble with dogs. They can't endure the new specimen, and would probably tear it to pieces if we didn't keep it at a distance from them. 11:30 p.m. Attention. Dyer, Pabodie, Douglas. Matter of highest eye, might say transcendent importance. Arkham must relay to Kingsport Head Station at once. Strange barrel growth is the Archean thing that left prints in rocks. Mills, Boudreaux, and Fowler discover cluster of 13 more at underground point 40 feet from aperture. Mixed with curiously rounded and configured soapstone fragments smaller than one previously found star-shaped, but no marks of breakage, except at some of the points. Of organic specimens, 8 apparently perfect, with all appendages, have brought all to surface, leading off dogs to distance. They cannot stand the things. Give close attention to description and repeat back for accuracy. Papers must get this right. Objects are 8 feet long all over. 6 foot 5 ridged barrel torso, 3.5 feet central diameter, 1 foot end diameters. Dark gray, flexible, and infinitely tough. 7 foot membranous wings of same color, found folded, spread out of furrows between ridges. Wing framework tubular or glandular, of lighter gray with orifices at wingtips. Spread wings have serrated edge. Around equator, one at central apex of each of the 5 vertical stave-like ridges, are 5 systems of light gray flexible arms or tentacles found tightly folded to torso but expansible to maximum length of over 3 feet, like arms of primitive crinoid. Single stalks 3 inches diameter branch after 6 inches into 5 substalks, each of which branches after 8 inches into 5 small tapering tentacles or tendrils, giving each stalk a total of 25 tentacles. Cannot yet assign positively to animal or vegetable kingdom, but odds now favor animal. Probably represents incredibly advanced evolution of radiata without loss of certain primitive features. Echinoderm resemblance is unmistakable, despite local contradictory evidences. Wing structure puzzles in view of probable marine habitat, but may have use in water navigation. Symmetry is curiously vegetable-like, suggesting vegetables essentially up and down structure rather than animals fore and aft structure. Fabulously early date of evolution, preceding even simplest Archean protozoa hitherto known, baffles all conjecture as to origin. Complete specimens have such uncanny resemblance to certain creatures of primal myth that suggestion of ancient existence outside Antarctic becomes inevitable. Dyer and Pabodie have read Necronomicon and seen Clark Ashton Smith's nightmare paintings based on text, and will understand when I speak of elder things supposed to have created all Earth life as jest or mistake. Students have always thought conception formed from morbid imaginative treatment of very ancient tropical radiata. Also, like prehistoric folklore things, Wilmarth has spoken of Cthulhu cult appendages, etc. Vast field of study opened. Deposits probably of late Cretaceous or early Eocene period, judging from associated specimens. Massive stalagmites deposited above them. Hard work hewing out, but toughness prevented damage. State of preservation miraculous, evidently owing to limestone action. No more found so far, but will resume search later. Job now to get 14 huge specimens to camp without dogs, which bark furiously and can't be trusted near them. With 9 men 3 left to guard the dogs, we ought to manage the 3 sledges fairly well. The wind is bad. Must establish plain communication with McMurdo Sound and begin shipping material. But I've got to dissect one of these things before we take any rest. Wish I had a real laboratory here. Dyer better kick himself for having tried to stop my westward trip. First the world's greatest mountains, and then this. If this last isn't the high spot of the expedition, I don't know what is. We're made scientifically. Congrats, Pabodie, on the drill that opened up the cave. Now, will Arkham please repeat description?
The sensations of Pabodie and myself upon receiving these reports were almost indescribable. Even our companions were nearly as enthusiastic. McTeague, who had managed to hastily translate some key points while the messages were coming through, later wrote out the full text from his shorthand notes once Lake's operator signed off. Everyone grasped the significance of the discovery. I immediately sent Lake my congratulations, and Sherman at the McMurdo Sound Supply Cache, along with Captain Douglas of the Arkham, followed suit. As head of the expedition, I later added a statement for the Arkham to relay to the outside world. Rest was impossible amidst such excitement. My only wish was to reach Lake's camp as soon as possible. But that hope was dashed when he sent word that a rising gale in the mountains had made aerial travel temporarily impossible.
This must have been incredibly frustrating for you, Dr. Dyer. What was it about Lake's reports that left such an impact on you and your team? Dr. Dyer, it must have been quite a scene at the camp when Lake's team transported the specimens. Can you tell us more about what followed?
Yes, it was nothing short of extraordinary. Within an hour and a half, Lake had sent word of the successful transportation of all 14 specimens to the camp. It wasn't an easy task. The specimens were surprisingly heavy, but his team of 9 men managed it efficiently. They immediately began constructing a snow corral at a safe distance for the dogs, ensuring they could be fed without disturbing the camp. The specimens were laid out on the hard snow near the tents, except for one, which Lake brought into the newly established laboratory for a closer examination.
And this was when he began his dissection?
That's correct. Lake attempted to dissect one of the more intact specimens, but the process was far more difficult than he'd anticipated. Despite the heat from a gasoline stove, the tissues retained an almost indestructible leathery toughness. Frustrated but determined, he shifted to a partially damaged specimen, hoping to glean more insights without risking the integrity of the pristine ones.
Did his initial findings provide any clarity?
Clarity? No, not at all. If anything, they deepened the mystery. The organism defied all conventional biology. Its tissues, despite being an estimated 40 million years old, showed no signs of mineral replacement. Internally, the organs were entirely intact, a testament to some ancient evolutionary process utterly alien to anything on Earth. Lake noted thick, dark green fluid and analog to blue-doozing from the organism, accompanied by a pungent, acrid odor that upset the dogs, even from a distance. The discovery left us in awe. It became clear that existing biological paradigms would need a radical overhaul to accommodate this find.
It sounds as though Lake and his team were on the verge of redefining biology. What else did he observe?
Lake was astounded by the creature's dual nature. It was part animal, part vegetable and entity that bridged the gap between the kingdoms of life as we understood them. It could digest, circulate fluids, and eliminate waste like an animal, yet it reproduced like a primitive plant through spores. Its nervous system was incredibly advanced, suggesting intelligence and sensory capabilities far beyond our comprehension. Most unsettling, however, was its apparent adaptability. It had respiratory systems suited for amphibious life, and its wings hinted at some aerial function. Lake speculated half seriously, of course, that it might even have had more than 5 senses, a notion that left us all uneasy.
And these findings inspired Lake to draw on mythology for a name, didn't they?
Indeed. He began referring to them as the Elder Ones, drawing parallels to ancient myths and the dreaded tales found in the Necronomicon. He believed these creatures could predate life as we knew it on Earth, possibly linked to a cycle of existence that spanned back to the planet's very formation.
It's fascinating and haunting to think of such creatures thriving on a young Earth. What happened after the dissection?
By 2:30 a.m., Lake had decided to rest. He carefully covered the dissected specimen and moved the remaining ones closer together, shielding them from the rising gale with a spare tent. The relentless Antarctic sun was beginning to warm their tissues slightly, causing faint movements in some appendages. Lake wasn't concerned about decomposition in the freezing air, but the dog's agitation at the smell was becoming a problem. To calm the camp, he ordered higher snow walls around the shelters and corral. By 4 a.m., Lake signed off, advising us all to rest and prepare for further communication at 10 a.m. weather permitting.
Given the discovery so far, it must have been difficult to rest.
You're right, it was. The excitement was tempered by a growing unease, a sense that we were venturing into realms of knowledge perhaps better left untouched. As Lake's findings unfolded, the shadow of the unknown only grew darker.
Dr. Dyer, this account is truly captivating. I can only imagine the sense of discovery and apprehension your team must have felt. But hold that thought for just a moment. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll delve deeper into these extraordinary findings and the eerie events that followed. Stay with us.